Alrighty guys, here is a bit of a work through on how to work out cut and fill. So I've done a tutorial on how to actually model the topography, and that tutorial starts where this one is going to end. So what we have here is the house is sited on the property, it's in the right spot, and we've worked out where our cut fill line is going to be. This is a good example, this project, and it's a few reasons why I've chosen this one to do the tutorial of is it has an easement down the side here. You can see by that dashed line, and easements, you have to pay a lot of attention to them when doing cut and fill, because generally speaking, an easement is there because there's some infrastructure, or like a stormwater pipe or a sewer pipe running down there. You don't want to cut into easements. You're straight up not allowed in pretty much every case. You can, generally speaking, fill into them, but sometimes not. So you'll just have to check that on a kind of case-to-case basis. But we're lucky in this example because we are going to be filling into the easement, not cutting into it. So if you have a look at the cut fill line, which we've got running down here, you can see that's at the 22.8 contour, and down here is 22.3, 22.1. So that's lower than our zero line, which means that if this is built up at 22.8 and that's 22.3, it's going to be about 500 mil out of the ground. So it's fill, 500 mil of fill. Same deal for up this end. All right, first thing that you want to do is I've drawn an approximate perimeter of my the pad. Generally, it's going to be a 900 mil offset from the brickwork or the slab or wherever, and you're just going to if you draw this 900 mil off here, 900 mil off here, it's going to kind of meet there. So rather than make it a really jagged pad, running parallel to the garage, then parallel to the porch, you just want to trim the edge off just so it's a bit more of a, easy to work with shape. All right, first thing you want to make a group, call it whatever, it really doesn't matter. And then you can trim the edges off here. I generally make them about 1 meter, but you don't really need to. But I think we'll do it just as a good practice thing. So you only really need to do it when there's a sharp edge. Don't be too worried about edges like that. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to each point of the pad, and you're going to work out the difference between that height, that contour or whatever that natural ground level is, and the height of our zero line. So just to keep in your head, 22.8 is our cut fill line, and we'll start down here. So this is the 22.3 contour. So that's 500 mil of difference between 22.8 and 22.3. We'll generally draw batters at a 1 in 4 gradient. So you take 500 times it by 4, and you're going to get 2,000. So that's that corner. Here is these contours, there's 100 mil between them. It's always extremely important to check what the difference between contours is. This is a bit normal. Normally there'll be a 200 mil difference. Sometimes a 250, which will massively change your contours if you mistakenly think it's 200 and it's actually 250. But yeah, you just gotta have a look and see what the difference between the contours actually is. So, if we go that's 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, it's kind of 350. Make it worst case example. 400 times 4 is 1600, and then we've got another. So it's 100, 200. 200 times 4 is 800. Just draw a circle there, 800. And we'll just keep going around and just kind of work through. So we're just going to do it at the same time. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 1600, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. It's what? I'm really bad at maths, so I thought it was 3600. Just wanted to check so I didn't get it wrong. And then that's another 200. So I'll just do an offset because this one's already drawn in. Okay, so here's another good example of what's often going to happen. Drawing at 1 in 4 it's a bit of a luxury. Like, that's a pretty gentle slope. You know, that's best case scenario. It's not always going to happen. It's not always going to work though. So you can only kind of go steeper from 1 in 4. Depending on how close you are to the boundary, you can go up to 1 in 1. You know, so if this is what is it, like 2200 or something, like, what was it? Yeah, you know, if it's a very steep. Sorry, it would be a very small batter at 1 in 1, but because we are drawing at 1 in 4, it's like, you know, it's 5.5 meters. It's pretty ridiculous. What you want to do then is you just want to cut it off at the boundary. You want to trim that line at this point, but we'll just leave that for now because you're going to use this to connect to this one later on. So, you know, we've got our 50/20 or whatever that is. That's all good. So we'll work out this one now. So that's 1, 2, 2. So pull that 800. Okay. So now that we've got all of our points worked out, the ones that are drawn as circles, you just want to go and do a split line and just cut a hole in them so that they're going to be easy to kind of connect and join up. And then once that's done, just delete the hole that you cut out of them, because you don't need the full circle. It's only just, you know, just to draw, you know, connect the tangents. Now you want to don't draw exactly at the intersection, because in the 3D modeling tutorial we kind of discussed that it's better if they're two different closed circuits. So if you draw it here, it's gonna have to like have a break. Like, it will have to have a break in it. So if you kind of put it out here and then start to join things up, it's going to be a lot easier for you when you're actually modeling the topography. Now, I'm just going to bring this around. Like so. So I'm just using detail lines here as well. I'll just explain. It's just a detail group. Nothing too fancy. It's just so that it's all in the one place and it's easy to kind of edit and isolate. You're not gonna move the lines independently. So it definitely wants to be in a group. So just here, it doesn't really matter if it's kind of here or there or here. Like, it's rough. You know, this is a, you know, topography survey, but it's probably going to change on site when they're building this place anyway. So, you know, as close as you can get is good enough. So I'm just drawing them from the tangents here. Bring this around. So it's not quite there, but like I said, close enough. Okay, this is what I was talking about, and this is why I left this this line untrimmed from before. When you connect these 2 points, you're going to want to work out how far along this boundary it's going to become a 1 in 4 slope again. So if we kind of draw from here out to here, like so, that means that at this point, that's now going to be 1 in 4 to the boundary, and then anything between here and here is going to be a, you know, quote unquote steep batter, and then we have to label it as such. and it's just going to be like 1 in 3, but it just needs to be noted so that the builder knows this. All right, so that's all a closed circuit. This is all a closed circuit. I'll just add the cut fill line to this group, and the fill and cut notes, labels, whatever you call them. Make sure that they're in the right spot, because they were just over off in the default template position, which is nowhere in particular. But now we've got that's the cut side, so this is all being cut in. This is the fill side. This is all being filled. So they can read what's going on. All right, we are pretty much there. Next thing that you'd need to do would just be to do the little detail components. There's a thing called a batter arrow, which I made, which saves so much time. Normally, if you're drawing batters, just using detail lines, you'd have to draw in little teeth like this, and it's just going to take you ages. If you use the little component that I've made, it's so much easier. So with fill, the arrows are pointing away from the building. With cut, the arrows are pointing towards the building. It's kind of a hard thing to visualize initially, and it's very, very easy to get wrong. But that's just something that with experience you'll just know that that's how it's supposed to look, and you don't even have to think about it. So you just go through, draw them, just make it look good. Just make it look a bit pretty. Yep. And then it's going to change, obviously. So we've got all of our fill arrows in. Now we've got our cut arrows. You don't have to be too precious with them like this. It's just, who knows how long the builders are actually going to spend looking at this. They're just going to work out what the pad level is and work it out on site, really, let's be honest. Okay, look, that's pretty much it. We've got the extents here, got the extents there. It's all a closed loop, so when you try and select the lines to model the topography, then she's all good. Very good. Next thing, we'll save, which will just take a sec. First thing I'm going to do after this now is put in a note, because we've had to put in a steep batter, and it's going to be about 1 in 3. So we'll go 1 in 3 gradient to avoid holes. So it'll be a different note if you're going to have a retaining wall anyway, in which case you'd say steep batter up to 1 in 1 gradient to mitigate retaining walls. So avoiding and mitigating are obviously two different things, but that's it. Look, that's pretty much the long and short of it. You want to make sure that the cut and fill line is absolutely certain, spot on, because that's going to change everything. Like if they come back and they say, oh, the pad level's got to be 23.2, you've pretty much just got to delete this and start again. But you get pretty quick at drawing them once you've done a fair few. But you really want to make sure the house is in the right spot, and you want to make sure that the cut fill line is established, and get someone to double check on it, because once that's done, that dictates everything. And if that changes, then just scrap it and start again. Pretty much, there's no point trying to modify what you've got. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Any questions, let me know. Alrighty, bonus round. There's a better way to work out the height differences at the corners, and it's not something that I included in that first part of the tutorial, just because I was just being lazy. But if we want to do this properly and make it as accurate as possible, what you want to do first is you want to make the topography. You want to go select import instance. This is obviously if you have a contour survey already. I'm going to go create from import, select import instance, and then you just want to be checking the contour survey there. We're going to go check none, because otherwise it's going to try and make topography based on every single layer that they have. Check none, and then if for these guys it's contour major and minor. Sometimes different surveyors you're going to have to work out what layer they've drawn the contours on. All right, so this looks good. Our cut fill level is 23,100, so that means that our zero line is 23,100 above where it needs to be, which is fine. So I'm just going to remember that number, 23,100. Go finish. Go to my 3D view, select my topography, and then I'm going to move that down 23,100. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here, and this is the important part for the topography, the batter bank creation, is at the points of the the corners of the pad, you want to go to annotate, and then you want to do a spot elevation. So a spot elevation is going to tell you the difference between that point and your zero line. Generally, it's going to be current level, and current level is probably going to be floor plan. So if you change that to AHD, that's going to be generally what our pad level is. So it's going to be 300 mil below ground floor. So a good way to check that is go to where your zero line is, and it's going to say, oh, it's 300. So that's the relative level is the wrong relative level essentially. If you change that to AHD, and that says 0, it's negative a millimeter, so that's perfect. So then you want to go around to each of these corners. So that's 490. I think we went 500, which is perfect. This is 350. I think we went 400, which is perfect. This corner is 200, easy peasy. This corner's, that's 400. You want to round these things up generally. 900, good to go. 1200, also good to go. 1300, I think we went 1300. And that is the better way to check. Rather than just counting contours and then trying to work it out in your head, it's much better to get the computer to do the thinking for you. And I try and do that in every situation. If you can get Revit to tell you exactly what it is, rather than just rely on something that there may be an element of human error in there, just definitely do that all the time. It's just a much better practice. But yeah, that's it. If you want to calculate these things easier and more accurately, you draw the topography first, then you put your little heights in at the corners of the pad, then you go through and just multiply each of those values by 4 to get the extents of your batter banks in. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Any questions, let me know.